Cool. Yeah, you can start time now. Okay, so to introduce us to the idea of like fake news and propaganda, we'll just do a quick vocab lesson here to get people thinking about how propaganda and like fake news really influences how we think about stuff. So we'll jump right into it. So we'll start off by going over a couple of the terms. So what is fake news? So we all like have an idea in our heads of what fake news is. Oh, by the way, my goal. I'll jump and do that real quick. My goal is I talk way too fast, so I'm going to try to slow it down a little bit. All right. So what is fake news? So we all have an idea of what fake news is in our head. We see it all the time on the internet these days. What we see, and so like what like a textbook definition I was able to find for you guys. It's basically it's purposely misleading or false news that is made to convince someone of something that isn't necessarily true. And so I just put this here. That is not like something like The Onion. Like The Onion is literally like fake, like a fake news source. But the difference is The Onion is never trying to convince you of anything. It's never trying to convince you that something is true when it's really not. The kind of fake news I'm talking about is stuff you see on like CNN, Fox News, MSNBC, where the story is misleading or false to make you think about a certain way. It has an agenda, that kind of thing. And so the term fake news is recent. Like this has come around because of Donald Trump's usage during the presidential campaign. So now everyone says it all the time. However, the concept of fake news has been around for actually a pretty long time. And so we'll jump into what that was. And so what about propaganda? So next two terms we'll look at is propaganda and political cartoons. So propaganda, so again, just have textbook definitions here for you, and then we'll go into a little more. So propaganda is information that is used to promote or publicize a certain point of view and advance a certain agenda. So propaganda is just fake news and trying to convince you of something, of its certain agenda and stuff like that. You see it a lot. We'll go over some examples of propaganda throughout history and stuff like that, especially during the time of World War II. And a lot of propaganda was seen in the form of political cartoons back then. Political cartoons were drawings containing commentary expressing the author's opinion on a certain political issue. And so over here in the corner, I don't know if everyone can see that okay? Over in the corner. So that is a cartoon that was drawn by Dr. Seuss during the World War II era. And so if you look at it closely, the person sitting on the tree there is the United States because of the hat, obviously. And so he's saying is ho hum. When he's finished pecking down that last tray, he'll quite likely be tired. And so you see a lot, there's like this bird that's a Nazi, like pecking down all these other trees that are named countries throughout Europe. And so this cartoon was trying to be ironic in the sense that like saying it's like, oh, the Americans are like taking this America First policy and like, you know, saying we don't need to get involved because once he takes over Europe, he won't have the time to come after us. So that was just kind of trying to essentially make Americans feel bad about staying out of the war and saying it's like, no, we need to jump in and help them. And so like this kind of propaganda was used to try to get people into the war. And so we can look at a couple more examples of this. And so we have a bunch of examples here. We have like the classic, oh my God, technology hates me. Anyway, right here we have like probably the most famous piece of propaganda in American history, the I Want You poster used during World War I, World War II, the Vietnam War to get people to join the army. Here, does anyone know what this might be about? You can try to see like maybe context clues that's inside this cartoon. This one here on the top. That?
I think just because I have a little history background, I've seen it before, but I don't know if that was World War I or II, but it was basically kind of identifying, I think it was Germany, as kind of like a violent ape animal that's kind of like coming for your, I guess, innocent, you know, wives and daughters, and playing on that kind of idea too during the time. So
yeah, no, and so so you can tell by the helmet with like the little spike on top. This is supposed to represent Kaiser Wilhelm, who was the German emperor during World War I. So here, right, this is World War I. And like you said, it's just trying to get people to enlist and show like these Germans are these brutish creatures who are like trying to kill our families and stuff like that. We need to stop them, so you should enlist in the army. And then this one is my favorite one. Did anyone figure out what this one's about? This one's great. Can anyone figure out what this one's about? When you ride alone, you ride together. So essentially, this cartoon was encouraging people to carpool during World War II because if you carpooled, it saved gas. So more gasoline could be used for the military campaigns in Europe. So essentially, this ad was guilting you for driving alone and saying that you support Hitler if you drove alone, which is kind of amusing and ridiculous to us, but honestly, that probably worked pretty well back then. Probably saved the U.S. military a lot of gasoline to use. And then we don't even just see propaganda in like political and wartime stuff. We even see it like with just advertisements today from like Michelin, where this one says, you know, Michelin because so much is riding on your tires to try to convince you, you know, you should buy good tires from Michelin because your loved ones are like being, you know, protected when you are in your car and under your protection then. So try to like get more of a sense of like how propaganda can influence us. We are going to do a little activity where you guys are going to jump onto Google and you're going to find propaganda or like advertisements that have like an agenda on your own, and you guys are just gonna like, you don't even need to like necessarily take notes, but you can just like kind of jot down stuff. And then what I'm handing out right now is just like a set of little guiding questions. So you guys are gonna take like a couple minutes to look up a piece of propaganda, and then you're gonna take little notes about it for a couple minutes, and then we're just gonna discuss what you guys have found. So we're gonna take a couple minutes to do it now. I'll be walking around, see if I can help anybody out with what's going on. So let's take a couple minutes to do that right now.
Can it be like just any form like of like historical propaganda or anything? Okay.
Like it could be like a modern like advertisement. It could be like a historical poster. Just anything that you consider propaganda. That way, and then after that, we'll discuss to wrap up the lesson. How am I doing on time?
You're doing good. It's in like 6 minutes.
Perfect. So we'll take like 3 minutes to do this. You know, just get your ideas together, jot them down. What do I got here?
I'm just looking up some World War II ones.
Yeah, that's good. Yeah, there's always a lot of really good ones with World War II.
Yeah. I've never seen that one.
That's a good one. I think I've seen that before. Yeah.
This one's problematic.
What do you got here?
Yeah, well, you see a lot of, like, especially with, like, historical ones, like, there can be some pretty overtly racist things.
Yeah.
So that was the big one with World War II ones. And
Yeah.
One, there's a lot of that.
No, like, that's worth talking about, just, like, you know, how did that, like, influence people's thinking? Because, like, I mean, to us, it's like, oh my god, who would, like, take that seriously? That's so racist. But, like, you know, in times of war, sometimes people don't always think rationally about stuff like that.
Yeah. I mean, it probably worked.
Yeah, exactly. So that's what we'll discuss about in a couple minutes.
So you guys need like 1 more minute to like finalize stuff and we can talk?
Yeah.
Perfect. All right, I'll give you another minute. All right, let's just wrap up your thoughts and then we'll start having a little discussion about these. So does anyone feel comfortable like sharing with everyone, like showing your iPad, what you got? What's up?
So I had this one. My brightness is kind of down. Sorry. And it's Donald Trump and he's defending American freedom by building a wall. But I noticed that like the flag is completely destroyed and he's just looking like his angry self. And I just read about how like the flag's torn and destroyed, and that's kind of like a symbol that like just because he wants to build a wall, like if you put him in office, like our freedom's gonna be destroyed and America's gonna be like destroyed slowly, which I think like it's like happening kind of.
Yeah.
I kind of agree with this, not gonna lie.
I mean, yeah. It's what like do you think that is like, I mean, this is probably an obvious question, do you think that's like pro-Trump or anti-Trump, that
Anti-Trump.
concept? Yeah, and like, do you think that would be like something that would be very convincing to people? Like,
Well, I
how do you
wrote,
think that would be able to influence people?
it said like, how do you think people reacted to this? And I think that it's really relevant that some people got like really angry when people kind of attacked Trump, but then it's also like so many people also didn't agree with him. So I just think there's like that balance of some people saw it as like threatening to them, and then some people were like this is actually gonna happen if we let it happen.
Right.
So.
Right.
Yeah.
So does anyone else want to share?
Yeah, I can do mine.
Yeah, sure.
You have like 4 minutes.
Okay.
So we'll just roll through these next two, and then
Yeah.
we'll get to our final wrap-up question.
So mine is like a picture of a girl in a Navy uniform, and it says, "Gee, I wish I were a man. I'd join the Navy. Be a man and do it." So clearly the message was like, don't be like a girly man. You need to join the Navy if you're an actual man. Like, don't be like this woman. And I mean, it probably offended some women, but I would assume it worked because sexism was like the thing to do back then. And I mean, this wouldn't have worked on me because they wouldn't let me join anyway. So,
Well, do you think it's definitely like, because the way I looked at it, I've seen that one before. Like the way I've seen that is that like it's trying to talk to men, being like, hey, don't be a be a girly man, be a man's man, and go join the Navy. Do you think that kind of like, I'm trying, it's like Patrick especially, like, do you think that kind of like advertisement would work on you? Because it's kind of like trying to like insult you in a way, you know?
Yeah, I mean, at least if I was living in that time period, absolutely, because that's, at the time too, any kind of like mention, like even if you've seen The Sandlot, you throw like a girl, like that was like the ultimate insult, or like it was something like that, but it's just derived from kind of a very, I guess, patriarchal, can't say the word right now, but I guess sexist kind of attitude that was prevalent in the entirety of pretty much the 20th century.
Right. Yeah. Definitely. Yeah. So that's a good one. Pat, you want to just like quickly share yours?
Yeah, I'll try to be quick about it. It's a lot of
thank you,
detail, so I kind of like to leave it there. So that was basically like a World War II poster that kind of depicts everything that's bad about America, and then kind of just portrays the idea of them as being liberators of France and Germany, as they're kind of making their moves in there. And it's pretty much aimed at any German or member of France who kind of is looking at them as liberators and finally saying, oh, we're going to be free now because we're going to, German oppression, the tyranny is going to be eliminated, whatever. So it's kind of their way of just saying, they're actually not that good, especially when you look at, I think there's a little like Star of David down there, which kind of goes back to anti-Semitism they did, and a lot of other things thrown in there. Like I know they have Native American at the top, which kind of goes against their whole like race issue. And that, yeah.
Perfect. Yeah, no, so those are all really good ones. Those are all, like, there's so many, like, examples you can find on the internet. And so we're not going to discuss this, but, like, because we're going to be talking in our World War II unit a lot about, like, propaganda, you're going to see this a lot. I'm just going to leave you this question to think about while we go over the rest of the lessons throughout the unit. And just kind of, what is it about propaganda, political cartoons that influence how people think? Like, we can look back in hindsight at a lot of these and be like, why would people believe these? These are ridiculous. But obviously a lot of these worked. And, like, a lot of these were